My fiancée left me to clear her head with her ex's family. I cashed out the ring, took the honeymoon solo, and came back stronger. By the time she begged to return, I was already gone. When you're engaged, you think you've crossed that invisible threshold where two people stop playing games and start building something permanent together. At least, that's what I believed when Lauren slipped on the ring I had saved months to buy. For 3 years, we had lived together, shared bills, planned weekends, talked about children, and chosen the color scheme for a wedding that was supposed to be the first day of the rest of our lives. But as the date drew closer, things started to change. At first, it was subtle: missed texts, evenings where she stayed out later than usual, excuses about being too stressed to talk about the florist or the invitations. I chalked it up to nerves. Everyone says wedding planning brings out a new side in people. Then one night, as we sat down to dinner, she set her fork down with an almost rehearsed calm and said, "I think I need time to figure myself out. I don't know if I'm ready for marriage." My chest tightened. I waited for her to laugh, to say she was joking, but she didn't. Instead, she added, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, "I'm moving in with my ex-boyfriend's family. They've always been so kind to me, and I think being around them will help me find myself." I remember staring at her across the table, the smell of roasted chicken filling the silence. The words ex-boyfriend's family rang in my ears like a fire alarm. Who even says that? Who even does that? I wanted to shout, to demand answers, but something inside me went strangely quiet. My voice, when it came, was flat, almost clinical. "Take all the time you need." She looked relieved, as though she had expected an argument, tears, begging. Instead, she smiled faintly and said, "I knew you'd understand. You're the best." The next few days, the apartment felt like a museum of us. Her dresses still hung in the closet. Wedding magazines with dog-eared pages cluttered the coffee table. A set of champagne flutes engraved with our initials, an engagement gift from her aunt, sat untouched on the counter. But she was gone, finding herself in the comfort of her ex's home. At first, I cycled through anger, humiliation, and disbelief. Every time I closed my eyes, I pictured her laughing with him, telling his family how supportive they were, while I was the man she had left hanging. But after a night of no sleep, staring at the ceiling, something in me hardened. I pulled out the small black box from my nightstand, the engagement ring. It had cost me 3 months of careful saving, extra shifts, and cutting back on things I loved. I held it in my hand, not with sadness, but with clarity. This wasn't a symbol of love anymore. It was a receipt for a mistake. The very next day, I walked into the jeweler's and sold it back. The money, combined with the refund I managed to secure for the honeymoon we had booked in Italy, suddenly gave me options. Options that didn't involve waiting like a fool for someone finding herself in the arms of her ex. That night, I sat in front of my laptop, scrolling through flights. At first, it was just a fantasy: beaches in Greece, mountains in Switzerland, safaris in Africa. Then my cursor hovered over Bali. Clear water, endless rice terraces, sunsets that looked like paintings. Without overthinking, I booked it. 1 week later, I was stepping off a plane into a wave of tropical heat and the smell of incense. The island felt alive in a way I hadn't in months. I rented a scooter and tore through winding roads flanked by jungle. I ate spicy sauté at food stalls, drank cocktails under lanterns, and learned to balance on a surfboard, laughing when I crashed into the waves. Most of all, I felt free. No timelines, no tense conversations, no looming wedding that had turned into a ticking time bomb. Just me, the world, and the realization that I didn't need anyone to choose me in order to feel whole. I posted photos to Instagram, me on a board in the ocean, me at a cliffside temple at sunset, me grinning with locals I'd met who treated me like an old friend. The comments were full of friends cheering me on, saying I looked happier than I ever had. 3 days into the trip, the messages started. First, short ones from Lauren. "Where are you? Is that Bali? Why didn't you tell me you were leaving?" Then, longer, more frantic. "Are you seriously there alone? We need to talk. You can't just disappear like this. Please answer me." Her last message, late at night, was almost desperate. "You don't understand what you're doing. Please come back. We can fix this. We can still make it work." But as I sat barefoot on the beach, beer in hand, listening to the ocean crash under the moonlight, I realized something. For the first time in years, there was nothing in me left to fix. I hadn't lost her. She had lost me. When I landed in Bali, I expected a break from everything. But what I didn't expect was how fast word would travel back home. By the time I'd posted my third photo, mutual friends were messaging me. Dude, is Lauren not with you? Wait, you went solo? Bro, respect. Living your best life. And, apparently, Lauren wasn't just messaging me. She was telling people I was immature for leaving, that I'd overreacted, that I was being dramatic. It didn't take long before her narrative unraveled, though, because people talk. A close friend of hers, someone I barely knew, actually DM'd me. She's been at her ex's house, and it's embarrassing. Everyone knows. His parents are more excited to have her around than he is. He treats her like a guest, not a partner. I read that message twice, laughing under my breath. Here I was, sipping fresh coconut water on a sun-soaked terrace, while she was finding herself in a place where she clearly didn't belong. Meanwhile, she kept reaching out. Her tone shifted from annoyed to almost pleading. Please just tell me when you're coming back. You don't have to ignore me. We can work this out. I know it looks bad, but it's not what you think. And then, the real kicker. You don't understand how hard this is for me. You're selfish for abandoning me when I'm trying to figure out my life. I laughed so hard reading that. A couple next to me at the cafe gave me a weird look. Selfish? She had walked out on me, into the arms of her ex's family, and I was the selfish one for not waiting like a loyal puppy? By week 2, her messages took a different tone. More desperate, more emotional. I miss you. I miss us. This isn't what I thought it would be. His family is nice, but it doesn't feel right. I should have stayed with you. And then the line that really sealed it. I don't know what I was thinking. Please, let's fix this before it's too late. But here's the thing. While she was spiraling, I was transforming. I'd made friends with travelers from all over the world. One night, after hiking to a waterfall, I found myself sitting around a fire with people from 5 different countries, all telling stories. Someone handed me a guitar, and though I'm not a musician, I strummed a couple of chords, and everyone sang. It was one of those moments where you realize just how big life can be outside of the bubble you've been living in. I thought about how, for years, I'd put my own needs second. I'd worked long hours, paid for trips she wanted, supported her when she changed jobs, stayed patient when she flaked on responsibilities. And her way of thanking me had been to say, I need space, and run to a safety net from her past. No, I wasn't going back. The third week in Bali, she upped the pressure. This time she called my mother. That's how I found out, because my mom messaged me. She's been trying to talk to me. Says she's worried about you. Says she made a mistake. What happened? I explained everything in detail. My mom's response. Son, don't you dare go back to that girl. You look happier than you've ever been. Don't let her guilt you into carrying her baggage. And honestly, that was the last bit of validation I needed. Lauren, however, didn't stop. When guilt didn't work, she tried jealousy. She sent a photo of herself dressed up at some dinner, sitting across from her ex. See, at least he treats me right. I didn't reply. Later, I learned through mutual friends that dinner had ended with her ex telling her he wasn't interested in rekindling anything. Apparently, she'd been humiliated, crying on the car ride home, while his mom tried to comfort her. And there I was, at a beachside bar, clinking glasses with new friends, laughing harder than I had in years. By the time I returned home 6 weeks later, I wasn't the same man who had sat at that dinner table listening to her calmly announce she was moving in with her ex's family. I was lighter, sharper, and most of all, free. And when I walked into our apartment, empty, because she'd moved out while I was away, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel regret. I felt peace. Because somewhere between the sunsets, the scooter rides, and the laughter of strangers, I had found myself. And that was something Lauren, with all her searching, never managed to do. Update 1. It's been a couple of months since I got back from Bali, and I've had some time to reflect on everything that's happened since. But if I thought the story ended when I stepped off the plane, I was wrong. In many ways, that's when the real chaos began. The first week home was oddly quiet. Lauren had already moved her things out of our apartment, but she hadn't returned her key. I came back to find a couple of her shoes still in the closet, an old sweater on the couch, and a coffee mug she always used sitting in the sink. It felt staged, almost like she'd left them on purpose as a way of saying, "You'll think of me every time you see these." I boxed them up that same night, taped it shut, and dropped it at her sister's house. No note, No words. Just silence. That's when the calls started. At first, they were short. Can we talk? Please just hear me out. I made a mistake. I ignored them. Then came the long voicemails. She cried. She yelled. She swore she had figured everything out. She told me she realized she didn't actually want her ex, that she had only been confused. She said the time apart showed her how much she needed me. I still ignored them. After a week of silence from my end, she switched tactics. This time it was emails. Long paragraphs about how she was going to therapy, how she was reflecting on her mistakes, how she understood if I needed space but wanted me to save our future. The irony wasn't lost on me. When she left, she told me she needed space. When I gave it to her, suddenly she was desperate to close the distance. But here's the thing, I wasn't bitter anymore. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even tempted. My life had expanded so much in Bali that I couldn't imagine shrinking it down again to fit inside the world she tried to trap me in. One evening, I was out with a group of coworkers at a rooftop bar. We were laughing, sharing drinks, just enjoying the night, when I saw her name pop up on my phone. She was FaceTiming me, right there, in front of everyone. Normally, I would have declined, but something in me said, "Pick it up." I answered, and her face filled the screen. Eyes puffy, hair messy. She looked nothing like the woman who used to spend hours getting ready just to go to brunch. "Why are you doing this to me?" she blurted before I even said hello. "I told you I was sorry. I told you I didn't mean it. I left him. I left that house. Doesn't that mean anything to you?" The group around me fell silent, listening. I just smiled slightly and said, "Lauren, you already left me before I ever left you. That's the part you don't understand." Her face crumpled. She tried to argue, but I ended the call. My coworkers just stared. Then one of them raised their glass and said, "To dodged bullets." Everyone laughed, and we clinked glasses. It should have ended there, but Lauren wasn't done. 2 days later, I got a knock on my door. I opened it to find her standing there with a bag in her hand. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. "Please," she whispered, "can we just talk face to face?" I stepped aside, letting her in. She sat on the couch, the same couch she used to curl up on while scrolling through her phone, ignoring me. This time, she wasn't scrolling. She was shaking. "I thought I was doing the right thing," she said, her voice breaking. "I thought I needed to find myself, but I only lost everything. You were right there, giving me everything I could have wanted, and I threw it away." I listened, but I didn't answer right away. She kept going, telling me how her ex had distanced himself, how even his parents eventually got tired of having her around, how she realized too late that home had always been with me. Finally, I said, "Lauren, I don't hate you. I don't even resent you. But the man you left isn't the man sitting here now. I've outgrown us." She stared at me like I'd slapped her. Tears filled her eyes, but I didn't move to comfort her. For the first time, she was facing the consequences of her choices without me cushioning the blow. She left quietly that night. No yelling, no drama, just silence. And that was the last time I saw her in person. But it wasn't the last I heard of her. Because a week later, a friend sent me screenshots of Lauren's newest rebranding online. She'd started posting inspirational quotes about choosing yourself, about self-discovery, and about healing from toxic relationships. Apparently, I was now the toxic one in her story. And honestly, that made me laugh harder than anything else. Final update. It's been about 8 months since that night Lauren showed up at my apartment, pleading for a second chance. Since then, life has been peaceful. Actually, more than peaceful, it's been thriving. But before I tell you where I am now, I should explain how everything finally came full circle. After I turned her away, I thought maybe that was the end of it. But as I quickly learned, endings are rarely clean. Lauren didn't vanish quietly. She lingered. She texted me random memories every now and then, like a photo of us on vacation years ago, or screenshots of old messages where I told her I loved her. Each one came with captions like, "How did we get here?" or "We were so good together." I didn't reply. When the text didn't work, she escalated. She started showing up at places she knew I'd be, coffee shops, the gym, even the grocery store near my apartment. She'd accidentally bump into me, acting surprised, and then launch into another speech about how she'd changed. At first, I was polite. I'd nod, say hello, then excuse myself. But when it became obvious she was tracking my routine, I finally told her, "Lauren, you need to stop. There's nothing left between us. That didn't sit well. The next phase of her campaign was mutual friends. She started reaching out to people we both knew, painting me as cold, unforgiving, and heartless. Some of those friends, thankfully, the ones who really knew me, saw through it immediately. But a few tried to pressure me. She's hurting, they said. Can't you at least talk to her? She regrets it, man. Isn't that enough? I just shake my head. Regret isn't love. Regret is just realizing too late that the grass wasn't greener. Still, the pressure got old. So I started creating distance even with those mutuals. If someone couldn't respect my boundaries, I didn't have the energy to defend them. Then came the most dramatic twist of all. Her parents called me. Yes, her parents. Apparently, Lauren had spun them this sob story about how I'd abandoned her, how I was refusing to give her a chance to make things right. They asked me to meet with them for closure. Against my better judgment, I agreed to one lunch. I'll never forget the look on their faces when I calmly laid out the timeline. The finding herself speech, the move back into her ex's family home, my silence, and her sudden change of heart after my Bali trip. By the time I finished, they looked mortified. Her dad finally muttered, "She didn't mention that part." I left that lunch knowing at least the truth was out there. And then, mercifully, Lauren stopped contacting me. At first, I thought it was just another phase of silence before she popped back up. But as weeks stretched into months, I realized she'd finally moved on, or at least stopped trying to pull me back. That was when I could finally breathe. I started focusing on myself again, really rebuilding. My job was going better than ever. I picked up hobbies I'd abandoned years ago: surfing, photography, even cooking classes. I reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in ages. My social circle grew. My confidence returned. And somewhere in all that, I met someone new. It wasn't planned. It wasn't forced. It just happened. We clicked instantly, not because we were trying to fill voids in each other, but because we genuinely enjoyed each other's presence. With her, everything feels light, simple, easy. There are no games, no ultimatums, no finding myself speeches, just two people building something real. The funniest part? She was with me the first time Lauren finally resurfaced, online, not in person. Lauren had posted one of her cryptic healing journey rants, talking about how people will never understand the depth of your love until it's gone. Someone tagged me in the comments with a laughing emoji. I didn't reply, but I saw it, and I realized I didn't feel anything anymore. No anger, no hurt, not even satisfaction, just nothing. And that's when I knew I was truly done. Because healing isn't about revenge. It isn't about proving someone wrong. It isn't about them at all. Healing is waking up one morning, looking at the life you've built, and realizing you wouldn't trade places with your past for anything. Lauren chose her path. I chose mine. And for once, I'm grateful she left. If she hadn't, I never would have found the peace and the love I have now. So here's the truth. Sometimes when someone says they need to find themselves, the best thing you can do is let them. And in their absence, you just might find yourself too. And I did.